Good evening, everyone. How happiness thinks. Lesson 2. I hope you're all a lot happier this week. Yeah? How's your happiness doing? Okay, hopefully you'll be even happier tonight with what we're about to learn tonight. So lesson 2, this lesson is titled The Joy of Purpose, Facing Stress with Patience, Mindfulness, and Hope. That is tonight's topic. So let us put ourselves back into context over here. Last week we discussed like this. Happiness is a Jewish value. It's not just something that we personally enjoy. Ooh, 1 second. We got coffee. We have coffee. It's middle of brewing. Want to get it, Joe? So I think it's done. And do we have cups? We have cups here. Look at that. So we got coffee for all of you.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Do you have a book?
Yeah, sure. You didn't come on last week? Oh, that's right. You gave it away. Yeah.
I gave it back to you,
Okay, good news. We got to order some more books. Because there's still some more people who need it next week. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Louis.
Thank you.
Okay. Happiness is a Jewish value, and Judaism teaches us how to be happy. Now, it's all built upon a premise. In the English language, the word happy comes from the word hap, which means circumstance, which means luck, which means a roll of the die, which basically means you don't control your happiness. Hap controls you. Your right chance dictates your life. If you have good hap, you're happy. You're hapless, you got no happiness. Right? That's kind of the idea. Judaism says no. Bisimcha, the word of joy, to be joyous, the same letters as the word machshava, which means thought. It is the thought, it is our attitudes, the way we think that nurtures our happiness. And that is going to be the going theory of this course. Happiness is something that is always available to us. We got the coffee. Coffee in the house, guys. Okay. Everybody learn from Jim. You could take some coffee. All right. Oh, you're giving it out? Okay. Real service here. Okay. Jim, take a seat. You're working too hard over here. So it's all about attitudes, and that's what we're going to be learning about. And we began with the first speck of the idea. What is the self-image that Judaism teaches us to have is humility, to get into the flow of life. And we started learning about that, which means life is not just, it shouldn't only be about the way you see things from a little bit of a larger perspective. Live for something higher. We spoke about getting into the flow, getting in the zone, getting into a certain energy of life where you're so invested in living for something a little bit beyond yourself that to a certain degree you even stop feeling yourself. You lose consciousness of the self, and that's happiness. That's the self-image of happiness. That was humility, and we're going to keep on developing these ideas as we move on. So today is all about facing stress, the joy of purpose. So here's a story. I want to tell you guys a story. There was a 30-year graduation reunion party. I grew up as a kid in Princeton, so I'm very used to the weekends in the spring where there's the reunions and the whole city is partying. Okay. There were two friends. They were both psychologists. One, and they meet up 30 years after they first graduated. One, he's old. He's beaten up. He's got white hairs. He's got those wrinkles. He's been through life. The other one, he looks like he just graduated yesterday. The guy who looks beaten up, he looks at this guy, young guy. He says, "How do you look so good? What's up with you?" He says, "Me looking good? You look so beaten up. You look so terrible. What happened to you?" He's like, all day I got to listen to people complaining of their problems, their stresses. It takes a toll after a while. So the guy says, "You're telling me that you really listen?" Okay. All right, edgy one. Okay, next. Okay, in any case. Dear friends, I want to ask you a question. What is the natural state of a human being? What is the natural state of the human being? We as humans, what is our natural default positions? Like when you buy a new laptop, a new phone, it comes with default settings. What is the default setting of the human being? What is our default condition emotionally? What do you say?
Happy.
Happy?
I'd say cautious.
Cautious. My children will differ, but okay.
Yeah, when you're a kid, when you're born, you're happy, right?
What was that?
No, I'm just saying that that's a natural thing.
To be cautious.
Cautious, for self-protection.
Okay, I hear. Joey, why do you say that the default position is happiness?
Because when a kid is born, a child is born, they, all they want is to be, held, fed, dry diaper, they got no troubles, they got no nothing, all they want is, be happy.
They want to be happy?
Well, I think they're born happy.
Or they're born happy. What do you say? Are humans naturally happy?
No.
Are we naturally sad?
I think you're taught happiness.
We're taught to be happy. Okay, what else?
I think that, yeah.
Who else?
Partially, I think cultural too.
Cultural, how you're born? Cultural is already an add-on. See, that's already changing the default setting. When
Well-
you're born, you have no clue what culture is.
But Joey talked about factory resets, and I think Stuart was talking about what develops over time.
No, I'm good as well, but I think it's something built into us that we're naturally.
And there's no question that we are naturally, that it's somewhat in us to be protective of ourselves.
Maybe cry when a stranger picks.
Right, but emotionally speaking, what is the default position? Are we neutral? Are we happy? Are we sad?
I think we're
Which
happy.
means, what was that? I'm
I
sorry?
think we're happy until something happens.
You think we're happy until something happens?
Right, so the dirty diaper, being hungry, I think we're good unless.
You think we're
something
neutral?
Externally happens and then maybe we're not so happy.
So Jewish spirituality says like this, that the default position of the human being is happiness. And the proof is, the way Hasidus puts it is, the essential human condition, the essence of who you are is to be happy. The proof is, little children are happy, unless something goes wrong. But by default, they're happy. And even more so, when they get sad, they're able to bounce back very quickly. Very easy for them to go back. And this is how we see practically human beings are happy. So it's a very cool thing to know. Naturally, we're happy. If we're ever not happy, it's not who we really are. It is an imposition upon our essence. Essentially, we're happy people. Okay. The only question is then, so why aren't we happy?
Life happens.
Life happens, right? The simple as a life happens. And when we say life happens, what do you mean by that?
All kinds of things happen to people.
The big
Good
things?
Bad things, little things can be irritating to some people. Some people, they just shrug it off.
Right?
So it's also how you react to what happens.
Right? So life happens, which means things happen. There's stresses. So give me some examples. I want to get some examples from you. What are some things that just got in the way of life, that ruined your day, that just made the day a little bit of a drudgery, overwhelmed?
New roof, new furnace.
Oh, that's a big one. New furnace is a massive one. I never had the new roof one, but I know that it's going to be a hard day, hard week. Okay, what else? Very good.
Well, I was just gonna maybe put the cart before the horse, but I think that, if we wanna be happy, we have to be happy all the time, even when bad things happen.
Okay, the question is how to do that. That's today's class.
Well, then I won't get,
But
I won't get ahead of my skis.
so the question is, let's first put together on the table what we want to talk about today. We're not going. Okay, so let me put this out there right away. We're not talking today about the major stresses or the major grievances of life, major losses. Let's call it traumatic losses, like loss of life, God forbid, or very very serious medical conditions, etc. Major financial loss. So those are the biggies, and we'll say that for lesson 5, by the way, of this course. No, so I want to keep it day to day. I want to keep it daily life. None of us are freed from these things, the little things that simply get at us. There's an interesting idea in psychology. It's a theory. I don't know if it's unanimous. That what grates at our nerves are the small stresses a lot more than the big stresses. The big stresses, very often, they're unavoidable. We know we have to deal with them. We know we can't ignore them. So we muster up all of our emotional energy and we face the challenge. The small things, simply traffic. There you go. Simply traffic. There's 3 categories. So psychology says it's the tiniest small things that happen. That each thing on their own would be small, would be insignificant. But that drip effect of the accumulation of this little thing that goes wrong, that little thing that goes wrong, and all together, all of a sudden, it starts really wearing us down. We lose all of our defenses. And that's really where you see people having bad days over things that in 24 hours from now won't really matter much. You're not even going to remember that it ever happened. And in that sense, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're naturally happy, just life gets in the way. There's specifically, I want to break down today's class into 3 different areas. Number 1 is the daily hassles and annoyances. Like the type of things that when it happens, you say, you've got to be kidding me. My tire blew out. You've got to be kidding me. I've got no time for this. Power, you've got to be kidding me. Power's out, you've got to be kidding me. I've got no patience for this today.
Mosquito get me right.
At the very wrong spot. I was just up north for a month, right?
Yeah, right.
And I was like, wow, no mosquito touched me a whole month. Literally, the last day I got bitten from both feet. I have no clue how that happened. Last day is when it had to happen. Okay, in any case, it's all good. Don't worry, we're surviving. So what are some other examples of these daily hassles and annoyances? Get a little ticket, job stress, stuck in traffic, too little work, too much work. Something small goes wrong. You run late for a meeting, make a wrong turn. I was just up north an hour before Shabbos. I thought I'm going to take a little bit of a shortcut. And Google Maps took me on a dirt road. It wasn't a dirt road. This was like sand dunes. My van had no hope. I got so deep in that sand like you've never seen before. The truck that came to save me got stuck in the sand. And I had an hour left for Shabbos. Like as soon as I did it, it was like I had that sinking feeling. Like it's an hour before Shabbos. Am I going to be stuck here in the middle of nowhere up north? I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So, okay, daily hassles and annoyances is what we got for the first one. Number 2 is feeling scattered and overwhelmed. Simply the feeling of not necessarily is anything going wrong, I just have too much on my plate. There's too much going on, and I can't function, I just feel overwhelmed. That's number 2. And number 3 is worry and anxiety about the future. It could be big things, it could be small things, but tomorrow and next week and next month is ruining our day today. And again, I'm not talking over here about anything major. I'm talking about the regular things every human being faces. Those small little annoyances that just get at us and wear us down. So, one perspective is we're human and life is life. And you're going to be stressed out. Okay, it is what it is. Welcome to adulthood, Welcome to life. Judaism says no. There's an attitude. There's a way to think, right? It's all about how we think. That even when we face these forms of stresses, there's a way that we could still maintain our joy, approach them with positivity, with patience, with mindfulness. And I want to share that with you today. Even though today's class is going to be split into 3 different sections, it is really one theme, one thread that we're going to be developing from now till 9 o'clock. So dear friends, as we get going, we're going to begin with our first one. Daily hassles and annoyances, but first a little exercise. Let's take a quick moment. I just want you to think of something a little bit. Let's process this personally. You don't have to share this with anybody. In your books, on page 49, we have a little exercise over here. I want you to list 3 recent experiences that triggered internal stress. And then what were the consequences of that stress? What happened, just how was your day? How was your week? How was your mood when you came home, etc. So let's identify, before we begin our journey tonight, let's identify 3 things. All right. Okay, so this is the basic gist. All these types of things that just get at us. Okay, here we have a few different options. Your shoelace snaps. No service on your phone for no good reason. You're stuck in traffic. Oh, you see, there's computer problems.
Yeah.
There's a delay. Delays in the airport.
Yeah, terrible.
That's terrible. No one's in a good mood there. Okay. Now we have over here a little quote. It's the continuing series of small tragedies. I don't know what tragedies that send a man to the madhouse. It's so true. When people flip out and just lose themselves, it's always over the small things. Okay, in any case, how do we deal with this? So, here's the Jewish secret. Here's a Jewish secret we call it the joy of purpose. You know, in English, there's an English word for this, and it's a very misunderstood word. We all use it. We all heard it from our parents. We all told it to our children. But it's not used appropriately. The word is called patience. Parents preach patience to their kids, right? Calm down. Wait, just simply wait. Wait for your turn. What does patience usually mean? We usually translate patience as in just, stop being so aggressive. Be passive. Just take a seat. Wait your turn. Wait for your turn for gratification. And that's usually how we use the word patience. We tell our kids, patience. You'll get your piece of cake soon, later, not now. But that's not what patience means. Patience is actually a real character trait, and it's the opposite of being passive. Let's read this next text. Text 2 is a psychological text, not a Jewish text, but this is a very, very important text. Let's begin on my right. Max, text 2, page 50, here we go.
Patience, defined as the propensity to wait calmly in the face of frustration, adversity, or suffering, is a character strength just beginning to receive substantial psychological inquiry. Initial evidence supports that interventions intending to increase patience also lead to increases in well-being. Though people tend to think of the outward manifestations of patience, calm and tolerant behavior, it also has an inward emotional aspect, serene inner states. In fact, this inner component may be the defining feature of the virtue. Patience is not equivalent to the delay of gratification because delay of gratification involves the choice of whether or not to wait for rewards. In contrast, patience does not always involve a choice of whether or not to wait. The only choice a person may make is deciding how to wait. It may be helpful to conceptualize patience as a character strength, where instead of seeking to change the situation, people exert control by changing themselves to fit the situation. Thus, patient people are not being passive, but are actively adapting to face their circumstances.
So there's a lot happening of it. It's a very deep text. Patience is not being passive. Patience is not a form of surrender. Okay, I'll give up. I'm not going to push. I'll just sit back and wait until my turn comes. It's the opposite. Patience is a character trait. It's a virtue. It's aggressively dealing with the situation. It is saying, I'm not going to allow this stress or this situation to dictate me, to control me. The opposite. I am going to choose how I think, how I process, and how I'm going to live and be present in this situation. Right? It's not being passive, it's actively adapting, changing themselves to fit this situation. I want to put that up over here. Patience means, instead of seeking to change the situation, people exert control by changing themselves to fit the situation. See, people used to be on their phones in traffic, but with the new Michigan laws, you will not get pulled over if you read a book. Okay, in any case, it's all about how do you process a given situation. So what we want to do is build patience. That's gonna be how do we do that? How do we develop this character trait of patience? Which is that even when there's a stress, I'm talking specifically about the day-to-day constant drip of small little stresses, small little annoyances, small little nuisances that come up. How do we just have that patience of just, okay, how do I frame this situation to be the way I want it? That it doesn't ruin our joy, it doesn't rob us of our natural state of just being happy and content and joyful.
So,
Yes, Joey.
I mean, that process, that idea is so key in life in general. And as you know, I'm real involved with the recovery community, and the whole thing is what they say is you can't change anyone but yourself.
Mm-hmm.
All you can do is change how you react. to
Oh,
the
so
condition.
that's patience. So what do we need to know
How you can
to make us have patience every single day? So dear friends, let's analyze it a little bit. Why is it that we get stressed out when things happen? We're stuck in traffic, we're running late for a meeting, we get stressed out. Long line, waiting for a half hour, and we're just already at the edge of our nerves, we get stressed out. Why is that happening?
We don't have control.
It's funny, most people think that. We lose control, so we start getting very on edge. But that's not true. So many things in our life are out of our control, and that's not, we don't automatically get stressed when something's not in our control.
Breaks our plan,
Oh.
our vision of how things should be.
That's a key idea.
Unexpected obstacle is what I would think. An unexpected obstacle, something for which you.
Yeah. We need to be there. But now I'm stuck here. But I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be there. It's that disappointment, that tension. I don't belong here. Why am I here? This shouldn't be the situation. I shouldn't be having to pay this ticket. This is not meant to be. That is the source of our stress. Comes along Judaism. And Judaism says every Jew needs to remember this. This is an idea of belief in Judaism, but this belief in Judaism is not just part of our belief system. It's part of how we develop patience and face stress. You know, within the world at large, within the believing world at large, the general way of how to describe God is creator. What's God? The creator. But in Judaism, calling God the creator is secondary on the list. You know what the top definition of God is? The conductor, the manager. It's easy to say, you know what? Sometime, a long time ago, God created heaven and earth in 6 days. Okay, so what about now? Where's God now? What's his involvement now? And some would also say, okay, God is there to call the big shots. You know, where's there going to be a major world disaster, a big flood, big war? Who's going to win the lottery? There's a big lottery these days, right? All right, okay, so who's going to win it? That's that God plans. Judaism says, no. Our conception of God is not just that he's creator. I'll tell you the Hebrew. The Hebrew is, Boirei Olam, he's a creator of the world, Uman Higai, and the manager, and the director, and the conductor. He's the one calling every single shot right now. And Judaism says this to the smallest minutia, to the smallest detail of life. Everything is being managed by God. Nothing happens outside of God's plan, and God is directing, and there's a master plan to every single small detail. Judaism goes to such an extreme. Judaism says when a leaf falls off a tree, that was a conscious decision, part of the master plan by God. Who could know? Why did this leaf need to fall down at this very moment? Only God knows. The Talmud says that God has a plan, and God plans which fish in the ocean should eat this other fish. The sustenance of every single fish. We're talking about billions and billions of different fish and species. Who knows what's down there? We didn't even discover everything that's down there in the ocean. Everything is planned out by God. If a leaf falling off a tree is planned by God, then how much more so if we're supposed to catch a plane and it gets delayed? So let's read this next text. This is the key. This is the key to the joy of purpose. So Lewis, text 3, page 51. Give us a read.
We should clearly recognize that our travels to different places are not random, God forbid, but specifically directed by God. God's intention is that a particular person has a specific portion to rectify in a particular place, whether through Torah study and prayer, or through eating, drinking, and sleeping for the sake of heaven, or through another means of serving God. As the Baal Shem Tov of Righteous Memory explained the verse, God establishes the steps of man, meaning God imparts the desire to a person to travel to a specific place, God's intention being that the person should engage in a particular divine service, thereby rectifying what this person must rectify. Therefore, when we come to a particular place, we must take this to heart and ask ourselves, why am I here? For what purpose did God bring me here? Is certainly not or not.
This is the big idea. So dear friends, something happens in our life. We end up in a place we're not expected to be there. We don't want to be here. My tire blew out, so now I'm stuck sitting in an auto shop for an hour. So what, am I annoyed? Why am I annoyed? Because I'm not supposed to be here. It's a waste of my time. I've got a life to live. Now I have to sit for 2 hours while I get a new tire and discount tire? This text comes and says, no. God plans the steps of man. If you're there, that's where you're meant to be. Maybe you don't know it, but God decided that's where you need to be right now, at this very moment. So in that sense, don't tell yourself, I'm not supposed to be here. This is the idea of having a little bit of humility. An annoyance happens, a nuisance happens, something gets in the way. Right away, before we could get stressed about it, we have to sit back and tell ourselves, 1 second, process this little detail. This is meant to be. This is where my purpose is. So instead of feeling frustrated and resenting the fact that you're stuck in this situation, Judaism says embrace it. Keep your eyes and ears open. Be present. What is my little opportunity here? Why did this happen to me? So this is a very, very different type of perspective. It's asking ourselves, we know where we want to be. We know where we need to be. But when these things happen that get in the way of our plans, Judaism wants us to ask a little bit of a different question. What is needed of me right now? What does God have in store for me? And that is a very personal journey. There's no manual to open up and say, okay, what's my purpose for me being here right now? It's so personal. It is something that we have to personally develop. This is called patience. We have to actively take control of the situation and say, there's a purpose here. So let me look out for it. Let me see what my opportunities are. And it could be the smallest thing. It could be something so minute. It could be a big thing. Sometimes you will have the pleasure of knowing what your purpose is. Sometimes you won't even know, but there's a purpose. Okay, so in Hebrew, before I watch this video, I want to tell you the Hebrew term. In Hebrew, this principle of belief that God is managing the world and every detail of our lives is called hashgacha pratis, which means detailed divine providence. God is running the show, God is calling the shots, and every detail of life is that. So whenever something happens, right away say, okay, it's hashgacha pratis. This is what's meant to be. So let me now embrace the situation. This is how Judaism wants us to release that stress, release that tension, release that annoying feeling, that nagging feeling when we go through life. Building patience by changing our perspective. God directs a person to the exact location and exact circumstances necessary for the fulfillment of his or her mission. So, whenever anything happens, when you are faced with an annoying circumstance, remember this is for a purpose. There is a reason, and Judaism wants us to remember that. And the more that we train ourselves to have this reaction, I'll tell you on a personal level, I'm somebody, it's not my fault, it's my genes. It's from my mother's side. I know it exactly. My mother's family, a bunch of nervous wrecks. All right, this is gonna be on the recording. I gotta, this is off the record. My grandmother, her father, this is like generational stuff over here. Like very low tolerance level to anxiety and stress. So I naturally get very ticked off by these types of things. A change of plans, we're running late, I got stuck in traffic. These things could really nag at me. And it really works for me. And I bring it to my marriage, I brought it to my children, something happened, okay, let's just stop for a moment before we freak out. It's all meant to be. It's hashgacha pratis. It's all divine, it's all for a good reason, and we'll probably realize what it is. And that's the beauty of having this attitude. When you realize there's a purpose, very often you'll start seeing that silver lining. You go, I'm seeing the reason. Maybe tomorrow I'll realize why it is. So dear friends, I want to show you a little video right now. Our first video for tonight. I have a few videos I want to show you. This is from a children's video that I grew up on. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of my childhood over here. And this was from a children's video that shared Jewish values and Hasidic values, especially the values that the Rebbe always spoke about, and to convey them to children. So here's a little video. Let's do this.
Jede Sache, was trefft sich in Welt, ist das nicht Chas v'Sholem Nikra, zufällige Sache, doch das ist bei Ashgacha Protis von dem Eibishten.
Now I have to walk to school. If only that light had been green, maybe I would make the bus.
No battle. Is that what we learned in class?
Oh, hello, Rabbi Barris.
Hi.
I haven't seen you since you taught us in 4th grade.
And do you remember what we learned? I know, Battle. You must be upset about missing the bus, huh?
Yeah, that light wouldn't turn green.
But Battle, what about Hashgacha Pratis? You know that even making buses on time is all dependent upon what Hashem has in store for us. You know, Hashem has a master plan for everything in the world. And Hashgacha Pratis is always working, making sure that everything that happens is according to Hashem's plans. There's no such thing as coincidence. Hashem has designed everything that takes place, well, from the leaves that are fluttering in the wind to our meeting here today. Belle, you have a minute? I want to tell you a story.
Well, the bus route takes longer to get to school than it would take me to walk, so I have a few minutes.
Good. Once, the Rebbe Rashab and his son, the Rebbe Rayatz, were traveling. On the way, they saw two Chassidim, Reb Peretz and Reb Mendel, on their way home from the town of Lubavitch, and they were reviewing a Maimah they had heard from the Rebbe. The Rebbe Rashab turned to his son and said, "You should know, for 5,661 years, 9 months, 11 days, 15 hours, and so many minutes, this place has waited for Peretz and Mendel to sit here and say Divrei Torah. Sometimes we know what Hashem plans, but sometimes we don't. Yet a chassid is always happy and calm because he knows that Hashem is always watching over us. And anything that happens, well, that's Bahashgacha Pratis. Oh, you know, Bahashgacha Pratis, I think you can help me. This letter has to get to Union Street. You see this address here? Do you think you can drop it off on the way to Yeshiva?
Yeah, but I have to leave right now.
Okay, thanks a lot. And have a great day.
Hey, how you doing, my man? Everything okay?
I'm looking for this address and I can't find it.
You can't find it? Well, hey, I'm a policeman. It's my job to know these things. I'll help you out.
Boy, is this Hashgacha Pratis.
What's that?
No.
Let's see. Well, you got 1374, you got 1376. Okay, I see this doesn't have a number on it, but this must be 1378 right here. Okay, why don't we go check that out for you? Okay. Come on. 1370, all right, this should be it. How are you, sir?
Okay, everything all right?
Oh, everything is fine. Yeah, actually, I was just helping out my little buddy here. I believe he has a parcel for you.
A letter from Rabbi Barris.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
By the way, aren't you the officer that helped me a couple of weeks ago? My car stalled late at night?
Right. Oh, that was you over on Eastern Parkway and Brooklyn Avenue over here.
Right.
I remember. How's the car?
Oh, the car's fine,
Oh.
but it's really nice to see you.
Likewise. I'm glad the car's running well now.
Well, I really want to thank you again for all your help, but I was so flustered that night I just didn't get an opportunity to, get your name at all.
Oh, well, the name is Brooks, but, as they say in the trade, I was just doing my job. Okay, listen, take care.
Oh, that's nice. What a nice Hashgacha Pratis.
Oh, that's the second time I heard that expression in the last 2 minutes. What does that mean?
It's hashgacha pratis, and it means divine providence. Everything in the world is planned by God. Things don't happen just by chance. It's God that brings it all about. You see, because you helped that boy find my address, I got the opportunity to thank you personally for your help.
I see. Okay, now I understand. Oh, okay, well, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
You have a good day.
Thanks a lot. You too.
All the best.
Okay. Hey, Benji.
Hey,
how are you,
Mr. Brooks,
Benji?
how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Hey, you know, you're just the person I wanted to see.
Yeah, what for?
We have to discuss the permit for the street closing for your school.
Okay.
Boy, this is really hashgacha praktis.
Huh?
So that's the idea. It's all hashgacha pratis. And we just have to get into that mindset. This is the exercise. Whenever we are faced with a stressful situation, whenever there's a hassle, whenever there's something annoying, we have to ask ourselves two questions. There is, what did I need out of life at this moment? What did I want to do right now? But then we also have to take a moment and say, what was needed of me at this moment? Maybe God had something else for me in plan. Maybe there's a purpose for my living right now. Maybe there's a reason why I had to be there. So I'll tell you something that happened to me, and I've shared this story before, so it could be some of you heard it. But it was such a special thing when it happened because it was like wow, you can't make this up. It was either somewhere 2020 or 2021, probably 21, a year and a half into COVID. We were driving early summer, my family, Mushki and I and the kids, then we were 3 kids, from Detroit to New Jersey, to the East Coast. Okay, there's 2 ways for any of you who have ever done that drive before. You can either go on the I-80 or you go on the I-76. We were going to New Jersey, so the I-76 is a little bit quicker, but it's a lot more expensive. It's a much nicer highway, but you got to pay more tolls. All right. So usually, we go on the I-80. It's cheaper. It's also easier. It's a little bit of an easier highway to drive on. Okay. So I put in that we're going to be going through the I-80 and we're driving. 9, 10, 11-hour drive. And we're in Ohio, and I could see my Google Maps is telling me that the I-80 is developing a serious backup. First is a half-hour of traffic, 45-minute delay, hour. There's 2 hours. The I-80, when there's a crash in the I-80, there's like minimum 5 hours before that highway gets going again. They have real bad backups. You could be there a whole night, just sitting in one place. For some reason, it was so weird. When there was the fork, which is at the end of Ohio, you could either go right for the I-76 or stay left for the I-80. I just stayed on the I-80. And like once you make it, it's like, okay, you want to spend another 20 minutes trying to go off exits, on exits to... I was like, why did I just do that? I just got myself in real big trouble over here. We're going to I-80, there's 2 hours of traffic. Luckily, it wasn't a big deal. Once I was on the I-80, Google Maps had me get off an exit and go around all the traffic, so it didn't really add that much time. But in any case, we're on the I-80, there's traffic. We stopped by for supper at a TA, one of these trucking stops. Somewhere in the middle of no man's land of Pennsylvania. Right at this TA, I remember Mushka, I think, went in. Label was a little baby then. So she went in. I'm feeding the kids pasta. And all of a sudden I see this woman, she's like hovering around us. Like she's like sticking around. So I engage. I say, hey, how are you? And she says with a very strong accent, she says, are you Jewish? Which is a funny question. I didn't look that different than I do right now. So, yeah, I'm Jewish. And then Mushki comes out. So she sees Mushki. She says, and your wife, she's also Jewish? Yeah, she's also Jewish. So she says, I'm also Jewish. She grew up in the former Soviet Union, in the Far East, in Kazakhstan, I believe. Absolutely no Jewish background because it was in the former Soviet Union, no Jewish education. And she's not part of any Jewish life. She was never involved in the Jewish community. She got married to a Persian, Iranian non-Jew, an Iranian man. And 11 years ago, this was when this happened, it was 11 years ago, they immigrated to Houston, Texas. They live in some real out middle of nowhere suburb of Houston, Texas. He is a truck driver. That's his job. And she just, she says, this is my first time seeing another Jew. Sounds like, so what do you do? She was like so excited to see us and talk to us. And these are your kids. Like, it was like, so I right away asked her for a number. I said, can I try to connect you with somebody in Houston? My cousin runs the Chabad at Rice University in Houston, Texas. So I call him on the spot. I say, Shmuley, I've got here, of course. I've got here, what can we do here? She says, in Houston, there's a Chabad center specifically for Russian-speaking Jews. A comfortable space for them. Give me her number. I'll make sure that she gets connected. That's the whole thing. The amazing thing is, here's the best thing. She says, so I asked her, so I met her husband. So we're talking, we're schmoozing, we're kibitzing. Her husband's a truck driver. I say, do you regularly go with your husband on his trucking things? He says, no, I never ever go. You think I want to sit in a cabin for weeks on end? Because of COVID, and he was doing a little bit of like a shorter route. It was only 2 weeks. This time I decided to go with him. So how perfectly did the stars have to align that she should be there to stop exactly at this TA? Who knows what their story is and what traffics they had, I remember that day we also left late, which is a very big trigger for me. I hate leaving late on a day when we have a long drive. So I was already annoyed. Why are we leaving so late? We're off schedule. Now we're going to get there 3 o'clock in the morning. And it was so perfect. We had to get there at this exact time and be on the I-80, not on the I-76, for this little encounter to happen. And actually, last year I reached out to Shmuley and asked him to try to find out what's, are they still in touch with her? And yeah, she got involved there with the Jewish community. So it's like, it was a very, very humbling feeling. Like what just happened here? This was meant to be. There was a little purpose in this encounter. So it was like, for me, when these things happen, it really, and all the other times where you don't see the amazing development, it's a good way to remember. Just take it in stride. It's gonna be okay. Be patient. Patient doesn't mean just wait. Patient means reframe the way you experience this annoyance. It's all good. It's meant to be. God has a plan for me, and that is why we're here. That's why this happened. That is the first step of our journey tonight, the joy of purpose. Knowing that God has a plan for you and that's why things happen is the first part of living with the joy of purpose, and that is addressing daily hassles and annoyances. Step number 2 is feeling scattered and overwhelmed, which is something that we know of. It's the stress. Nothing is going wrong. Not like there's anything going wrong in my life, but it's the stress that I've got so much on my plate. And even when I'm trying to do this, my mind is being pulled in other directions. And I can't even enjoy the moment. Even when I try relaxing, I'm not relaxing. In Judaism, this is very interestingly addressed. There's a Hebrew term for this. It's called pizur hanefesh. When the soul is scattered, a scattered soul. You're spread too thin. Your soul is not invested in a moment of life. Your soul is all over the place. And Judaism, very interestingly, speaks about this and addresses this, which makes sense. Judaism wants us to be happy. Judaism says a Jew must be happy. It's a Jewish value to be happy. So any stress of life, anything that will get you down, Judaism has to give you the tools how to deal with it. So Judaism says like this. I'm first going to tell you the practical part of it, and then I'm going to give you the philosophy, the motivation for the idea. Judaism says there's something called mindful living, mindful engagement, which is something that the world has recently gotten very into, which means very simply, any moment of life, as long as what you're doing is appropriate, you're meant to be doing this in your life, it's not inappropriate, it's not wrong, it's not immoral, it's not the wrong thing for a Jew, but as long as it's a good thing, invest yourself fully. Even if it seems like a trivial task, even if it seems it's only for a short amount of time, it's inconsequential. Throw yourself heart and soul and be present fully in that moment. Don't engage in any moment of life on an external level, but try to really be present in living, even for the trivialities. This is a Jewish value. The Hebrew word means to be a pnimi. Pnimi means that you are deeply internalizing your experiences. You're really living your life. Every moment of life, you are fully present there. Like, today people are talking to you, and they're also on their phone, and they're also doing something else. They're in the middle of doing a few things at once. The Jewish value is be fully invested. It's interesting. It's a Jewish value. Why would this be a Jewish value? What is the religious value of being so mindful? And it's not why psychology would teach about it. Judaism speaks about this. I'll tell you a little story, and this will introduce this next text. The background to this text is it's 1970. It is the 20th anniversary of the Rebbe's leadership of the Chabad movement. The Rebbe officially accepted upon himself the mantle of leadership of the Chabad movement in 1950, winter of 1950. This is 1970. It's a massive celebration in the Jewish world and the Chabad world. Dozens of people flew in from Israel to be with the Rebbe and be at the Farbrengen, at the gathering, on this day. And the Rebbe sees at this gathering that the visitors from Israel, who have a flight to catch back in a few hours, are there but not really there. They're busy looking at their watch. They're busy talking, and they're not there. And the Rebbe addresses this. The Rebbe says, "I see there are people, and we all know this. Right before we travel, we're a little bit on edge. We can't really settle. We're a little bit antsy. We're a little bit jumpy." And the Rebbe says, "I want to tell you all a story." And the Rebbe says this story. The Rebbe says it was in the 1920s. The Rebbe was then engaged to the daughter of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, he was an unbelievable Jewish leader. At the dawn of the communist revolution, and when religious life became under threat, he decided to take it upon himself to create a network that will continue and support, and not only support, but to create the infrastructure for Jewish life that is necessary for the millions of Jews. The majority of Jews lived in the former Soviet Union. Children should be educated. There should be rabbis, there should be kosher meat, matzah for Passover, a mikveh for Jewish women. But this was all illegal activity. And he started, today Chabad in America is, it's all good stuff. But back then in the USSR, you go to jail for this type of stuff. But he encouraged and inspired all of his followers to put their lives on the line and to dedicate their lives to the continuity of Judaism in the former Soviet Union. 1920s. Now, 1927, he was arrested. The Russians they just ran out of patience with him. They arrested him. He was originally sentenced to death by the firing squad. The American State Department right away got involved, put a lot of pressure on the Russians that they're not allowed to harm this rabbi, and they eventually kicked him out of the country. They let him go free, but they kicked him out. This was the mid-1920s. The Rebbe's there, and the previous Lubavitch Rebbe is about to leave on an important mission. He is going to, I don't know what detail, but it was dangerous activity what he was doing. It was counter-revolutionist activity. It was illegal. It was criminal activity what he's about to do. He's about to board a train late at night. He had to travel to Moscow, and he had to do whatever he needed to do for his underground school network. It was very risky. They knew that there were the secret police, the KGB. Back then it wasn't called the KGB. It was called the NKVD. So the NKVD had agents. They knew that they were spying on the Rebbe. And they were already warned that the Soviets, their patience was wearing thin, and they really weren't going to accept anymore what the Rebbe was doing. And the Rebbe was going on this very dangerous mission one night. The Rebbe said it was less than an hour before he had to leave for the train. Maybe even 15 minutes before. And the Rebbe said, I knew that my future father-in-law was a very impressive individual, but what I saw even impressed me. He was sitting there by his desk working. He was dealing, I believe the Rebbe said he was responding to letters. Calm, focused. There wasn't a trace on his face that he's about to leave on a very dangerous mission. And the Rebbe confronted his future father-in-law and says, how could you do this? We know when we're traveling, to go on a very comfortable, nice plane ride, we get all jittery. And over here, it's a dangerous mission. The Rebbe's sitting there as if nothing's happening. He says, how could you do this? And the previous Rebbe says, this is something that a Jew needs to train himself in. It's called fully engaging in the moment. Whatever is happening right now is what is meant to be, is where you are needed, is where your purpose is. And you have to invest yourself there. And this is what the Rebbe said. Text 5, this is a little quote from that talk. Text 5, page 59. Where are we holding? Toby, are we by you? No? Jim, we're by you. All right. We don't want to skip over Jim. Go ahead.
There's a concept called success in time. What does this mean? We cannot add actual time to the length of the day or night, but within the unalterable constraints of time, we can make the fullest use of it and utilize it to its maximum. In order to do so, we need to adopt the habit that when engaged in a particular activity, nothing else exists. Anything that is not pertinent to the matter now at hand, whether it is something that we have previously done or that we need to do later, should be considered as if it does not exist. All we have is the present moment. But because this moment, brief as it is, will be free of all irrelevant thoughts and matters about past or future, we will have the ability to fully utilize the moment. This is success in time.
This is not just a good tip for time management. That'll be a different class. But one of the key areas where people are very stressed, we come home after a day of work, and we get very stressed, is this problem. We multitask, we multi-think. We keep too many tabs open on our browser. Every computer has a limited amount of processing power. And if you have too many programs open on your computer, what happens? You feel it. The whole computer starts shutting down on you. Nothing is working. It's computer overload, system overload. There was a study done. I wish I had more of the details offhand. But they took 2 workers and gave them both the same tasks. 2 groups. One group, they gave them very focused work, do this and focus on it and nothing else. Another group, they constantly were distracting them, giving them other things to do. Do this and do that. In the middle of a job, first take care of this, then get back to this job. And then they tested their stress levels. And no big surprise, the group that was always being distracted felt very tense, they had high blood pressure, and they were very tense. It wasn't a good working environment. For us in our lives, simply having this tool, mindful engagement, you're living a moment of life, just focus on it, be fully present, is one of the key tools to living a life where we don't feel stressed, and there's a certain ease and peacefulness in life. So let me put that up over here. We're talking about feeling scattered and overwhelmed. Dispersion of the mind, which means when we're all over the place, is when we attempt and live our lives multitasking and multi-thinking, which leads to high stress and frustration levels. What Judaism teaches is mindful engagement, that anything that is not pertinent, not relevant to the matter at hand, you consider non-existent. We're not thinking about it now, we're not dealing with it. And this creates a calmer and lower stress levels and higher functionality, higher productivity. How much more so is this important for today's world? The social media world, we're all over the place. All of a sudden, the war in Ukraine is my business. Every political problem becomes my problem. It's crazy. It's bad enough that we have our own problems. Everybody else's problems becomes our problems. And the fact we're always looking at our phones, we're always getting distracted. We're never really fully living in a moment. It's a very scary thing. The Boston Children's Hospital a few years ago reported that they're seeing alarmingly high numbers of teenagers being admitted to the emergency room due to exhaustion. They're not sleeping because they have their phones with them and they wake up from every single text. And in the middle of the night, instead of waking up and just turning back to sleep, oh, I'm up, they right away go on Facebook, right away on Twitter, right away on Instagram. Next thing you know, 3 hours went by. I'll tell you, for me, it's a very scary thing. During the week, sometimes I feel I can't fall asleep, so what am I going to do? Okay, I'll go on my phone for a little bit. Shabbos, when I don't have my phone, for some reason, I never have a problem falling asleep. It's so magical, huh? My mind knows that I'm not going to be on my phone, so we go to sleep. It's crazy. My mind sometimes doesn't let me relax. in the evening because there's like some form of addiction. It's a very scary thing. So in today's world, this idea of practicing mindfulness is so important what Judaism teaches us. Okay, but here's the key idea. Why does Judaism care about our mindfulness? What's the religious significance of being mindful, of living in every single moment? Because it goes right back to what we were talking about before. No moment is trivial. No moment is just circumstantial, incidental. Every moment has a purpose. To live a life in tune with your purpose means that you fully appreciate every moment of life. There's no such thing as like, okay, I just got to kill 2 hours at a time now. So what will I do? I don't know, whatever. We'll go do something. There's a reason why. So what is it? What's my purpose? And Judaism wants us to appreciate, even, purpose doesn't have to be some earth-shattering big revelation. Purpose means, what does God want from me right now? And when you realize it's a purpose, wow, this is not trivial anymore. I need to live this moment. God wants me to show up to this moment with my whole being, heart and soul. One of the top things that people want to know is, what's my purpose in life? What does God really want from me? And we expect to find out some massive earth-shattering revelation. God expects from me too. The real truth is, our purpose is very simple. It's always about what opportunities we have, what circumstance we find ourselves in, who we know, and being there. God already set us up for our purpose. We need to go find it somewhere else. It's right there. All we have to do is be in the moment. Appreciate that right now there's something that God wants of me, and to just take that in and live that moment. And from that perspective, this is part of the joy of purpose. Number one, to appreciate that every single thing that happens in our life is for a purpose. And number two, live that moment of life. Be fully present in that moment of life. Throw yourself, immerse yourself within that moment. And with that we have, right, this is the idea of purposeful living. That there's a purpose in every single thing we do, no matter how secondary or trivial it may seem. Like this guy, he's dusting his laptop. Isn't that wonderful? He's into it. Don't you see that? This guy is invested in cleaning his laptop. Okay. Dear friends, there we have it. Daily hassles and annoyances. The sense of feeling scattered and overwhelmed by just everything going on in life. Judaism says, no, take it one thing at a time and see your purpose. Live that moment of life to its fullest. Number three is something we all deal with. We stress out about the future, which, at least according to the stereotypes of Jewish jokes, is a particularly Jewish problem. What is the most quintessential Jewish joke? What's a Jewish telegram? Start worrying, details to follow. You ever heard that one? There's once a guy, he goes to his doctor. He says, doctor, I've got these headaches. I'm so worried about them. The doctor checks them out. The doctor says, if I were you, I wouldn't be that worried about your headaches. So this guy says, doctor, if you had the headaches, I also wouldn't be too worried. Okay, so what happens? There's something going on in the future. What is it? I don't know. Either it's a big deal or it's a small deal, and we love stressing out about the unknowns. What's going to happen? What's going to be? I got to do this. And we just simply allow some future unknown, stress, worry, fear, some anxiety about the future to hijack the current moment. Which goes against everything we've been learning about, right? The idea of being mindful, live in this moment, don't be worried about the future. But that happens sometimes. We get all worked up about the future. And what ends up happening is sometimes it's our mind playing games. When we actually have to face the problem, it was no big deal. Nothing worth stressing out over. But for some reason, the way our brains work is we get all worked up about the future. How does Judaism teach us to deal with worries? I'm just worried about the future. What do? So here it is. One simple verse. Well, we have to understand what's happening over here. Where are we holding? Larry, where about you? Toby? Okay. Toby, we're on text 6a, page 60.
A worry in a person's heart, cast it away.
Okay, Proverbs tell us you're worried, simply cast it away. Simply throw it away. Now, first of all, do you think that's healthy? Is that healthy? You've got a stress, you've got a problem, just throw it away. Make as if it never was there. Is that a form of like denial of of your responsibilities in life? Is that a way of shirking responsibility? It could be. You know, this could be a little bit of a dangerous teaching over here. Throw away worry. But this is what Judaism says. We sometimes have to take the worry and say, you know what, I'm just going to ignore this. I'm not going to allow a future worry that I can't even control right now to fix it. What this means is like this. Judaism says a Jew should never be worrying in the current moment about something in the future that is out of your control.
That's key, out of your control.
Out of your control. Oh, which means, and if you could control it, then you also don't worry about it. What do? You do something. Right? If there's something to do, you do it. There's never a place to worry. Do you have to care? Do you have to deal with things? 100%. Worry, just walk around with that anxiety about the unknown, about a future, that's no good. And it goes even a little bit further. The Talmud takes a look at this verse, and the Talmud says something very interesting. There is an alternative way to read the Hebrew word, which in the Hebrew language, especially in the Torah, is something we do very commonly. You could change around, you can make a small little change in the vowelization, and you get a whole different word with a different meaning. And the Talmud, the sages of the Talmud, unpack a different meaning over here. Larry, right? Talmud's text 6b, page 61.
Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asaf interpreted this verse. One said, cast it away from the mind. The other said, speak about it with others.
Ooh, there's two ways to interpret this verse. The way we read it in the Torah, the way the simple meaning is, a worry in a person's heart, yashchena, cast it away. The Talmud says that we can actually read the verse two different ways. We could read it as yashchena, cast it away, or it could be yasichena, speak about it. One of the ways of ridding ourselves of a worry is speaking it over with somebody else. It's a very helpful thing. It's one of the practical tips of Judaism. Judaism says get rid of worries. How do you get rid of worries? Sometimes we can do it ourselves. How do you do it? Just forget about it. Move on. Just don't let it sit there and bother your day and annoy you. Don't let it fester in your mind. Just actively push it out of your consciousness. Sometimes one of the ways of just getting over a worry is finding someone who's a friend, somebody who cares about you, and talk it over with them. And very often we find that when there's something which is overwhelming us, stressing us out, a task we have to do, a big situation, when we discuss with somebody, all of a sudden we get calmer. One of the ways of casting away the worry is by speaking about it. And the commentaries on this Talmud give us a few different insights into why this helps. Why does it help when you speak about it with somebody? Number one, somebody else, a friend, could provide advice that will sometimes solve the problem. Sometimes we get so worked up about our own problems that we fail to see the simple solution. Sometimes just a little bit of friendly advice could help give us the easy way out, could help give us the key and show us how it's not that big of a deal. That could be one option of how it helps. Number two, sometimes simply you articulating a problem gives you clarity and puts it into context. And as you speak it, you can sometimes find your own solution. Sometimes it helps you. Like the story goes, once a guy, he was very, very stressed out, very overwhelmed. He comes to the rabbi, he says, Rabbi, I have so much going on, I have such a big headache. And he unloads on the rabbi for 45 minutes. Doesn't stop talking, 45 minutes straight. And he says, Rabbi, it's amazing. I come here, I sit in your presence, I share with you all my worries. My headache's gone, I feel better. So the rabbi said, no, the headache's not gone. Now I have it. Okay. No, but that's just a cynical joke over here. Sometimes simply talking, it gets off your chest and gives you clarity. And number three, simply knowing the bonding experience, knowing that another person is listening to you, hears you out, is emotionally supporting you, that itself helps you cast away the worry. It makes you feel more secure. It makes you feel that I got this. So Judaism, but the end point is, get rid of it. get rid of it. So I want to read you a letter. This is from like a 200-year-old text from the great-great-grandfather of the Rebbe, the original Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson of Lubavitch, who's the third Chabad Rebbe, lived in the early 1800s. And he lived in Russia. One of his Hasidim, one of his followers, wrote him a letter, and he developed a health condition, and his quality of life just tanked on the spot. He was stressed out. Am I going to die? All of a sudden, he just couldn't function anymore. So he wrote about it to the Rebbe. So let's look over here to what the third Chabad Rebbe writes over here. Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Lubavitch. Text 7. Elke, are we by you? Let's do a read. Text 7.
I am responding to your letter in which you write about your fears. So they are very much unwarranted. You have been granted the choice and authority to think, speak, and act according to what you consciously desire. Even if you experience the emotion of fear, you are able to remove your thoughts, speech, and actions from that emotion. The essential thing is not to think or speak about this fear at all. Immediately upon not thinking about it, the fear will automatically dissipate. At the very least, the fear will become dormant and will not be felt in your body. And over the course of a few days, it will completely dissipate, to the point that it will not come up in your mind at all. The reason that removal of the thought nullifies the fear is because all emotions are sustained by the mind, through the medium of thought. Therefore, by removing the thought, the mind is disconnected from the emotion, and the emotion is no longer aroused.
It's a very simple but very, very, very efficient tool. Every single one of our emotions, the fuel of our emotions, what fuels the power of our emotions is active thought. Just think about it. When somebody hurt us, let's say, we got deeply offended. The more we think about it, you know what happens? The worse we feel. If something good happens, it's something that we should be appreciative of in life. The more we think about the goodness that we have, the better we're going to feel. What creates emotions is thought. So the Rebbe says, listen, you are allowing a worry to dominate your conscious thought. Because you're thinking so much about it, you became one big nervous wreck. The Rebbe says, you gotta stop thinking about it. Easier said than done. How do you stop thinking about something? But again, happiness is all in the way we think. We have to take control over what we are allowing to be in our brain. And we have to identify. There's a worry. Judaism says it's not legitimate. Stop allowing your mind to sit there and marinate in your problems, in your perceived problems. Practically speaking, this is what the Rebbe guides them to do. Let's go to text 9. Text 9 at page 63. Joey, give us a read on text 9.
The primary method of removing negative thoughts from your mind is by directing your mind toward other matters. This might be even worldly matters, if they are necessary and make you happy, or God's Torah, which delights the heart. By establishing fixed times for daily study of Torah, particularly with a study partner.
It doesn't work to just say, stop thinking about it. You have to find something else to fill up your mind. So this is called healthy distraction. What are things you could get engaged in that can simply stop, could help you get your focus away from all these things that are just holding you down? So if there's anything in life that brings you joy, that could be a healthy distraction, that is very good. That is how to do this. Judaism wants us to cast away our worries. And he says specifically studying Torah. Studying Torah has the effect of calming us down, nourishing the heart, nourishing the soul, making us feel better, delighting the heart. He says especially do it with somebody else. Do it with a study partner. And this is the Jewish value. But dear friends, I want to conclude with maybe the most important point over here today. Why is this valid? Some people may look at this and say, I don't agree with this. There's a worry and you're not going to validate somebody's feelings? There's something to be worried about. You're going to say, don't worry. I am worried. What do you want? I think this is worth worrying about. So Judaism seems like it's a little bit too flippant. Just don't worry about it. Cast it away. Why shouldn't we worry about it? How could Judaism say don't worry about it? There's a lot of things to worry about in our world. Forget about the things we don't have control about. Forget about the things that aren't directly relevant to us. But then there are things that are in my personal life. I'm worried about the future, whatever it is. Why shouldn't I be worried about it? Right? Life happens. Life gets in the way. Why is Judaism so confident to say don't worry? And this is the final puzzle piece where we talk about purpose. Until now we spoke about Jewish beliefs. We believe that God is fully in control. We believe that every single moment of life is in God's hands and God is planning it and it's for a purpose. But there's one final puzzle piece to this picture, to this idea, which is not belief, is the concept of trust. Now, sometimes in English, the word believing and trusting is used somewhat interchangeably. I believe in God, I trust God. What's the difference between believing and trusting in something? What's the difference between believing and trusting in God? What is the difference between those two terms? You could say, I believe in God. But do you trust in God? It's a very simple difference. You could believe in anything. Belief is a little bit of a distant relationship. You know, I believe in the IRS. I believe in the power of the IRS. Right? Oh, but do you trust the IRS? We believe in the power of the government. Do you trust the government? Trust is a lot deeper than belief. Belief, in a certain sense, is even a little bit cheap. Yeah, I believe. But do you trust? Trust is where there's a relationship. Trust means, are you willing to throw your weight upon this source of trust? The final idea that Judaism teaches us is that not only do we believe that God is running our lives and has a reason and a purpose for everything that happens, we trust that God has our best interests in mind and that there's a good purpose for everything. That's where the trust comes in. Don't just believe, you trust. You may get stuck here a whole night. No, don't worry. Exactly. The heavens are supporting my argument. All right. Or maybe the opposite. Maybe they're arguing. Okay, whatever. It's all up to interpretation. The final idea of this idea of the joy of purpose is knowing that not only does God have a purpose for me, I could trust that God cares for me, loves me, wants my best interest, has my best interest, and is creating my life with my best interest. And for that reason, don't worry. You could trust. And this is a very big idea in Judaism. It's easier said than done. But one of the very big values and virtues that Judaism teaches us is how to develop trust in God. I'll give you the very quick and short version of it. Trust in God, okay. Trust in God is built upon the following 7 pillars. In general, anybody. Do you trust a friend? Do you trust your parents? Do you trust your spouse? Do you trust your children? Do you trust your siblings? Trust is built upon at least one of these 7 pillars. The more of these 7 pillars that are present, the more you will trust this given party. Number 1, this person has compassion, pity, and love for you. If this person loves you, then that's the first level of trust. Number 2, they are generous and kind even when you are undeserving. If somebody is not going to be nice to you when they think you don't deserve it, you have less trust for that person. Number 3, it's somebody who has your best interest and knows what is best for you. Somebody that you could trust, that they have the knowledge and the wisdom to know what is good for you. Sometimes there are people that, they love you, but they're not that smart. Or maybe you don't trust them that they really know what's in your best interest. So number 3, you can only trust somebody who knows. You're confident they know what is good for you. Number 4 is not forgetful about you, and they're not lazy to help you. Right? You can't trust somebody who's not going to show up when you need them. Number 5, they're strong and can't be prevented from helping you. If somebody's too weak, they can have they can have good intentions, but if they're too weak, they can't actually help you. Number 6, they have complete and exclusive control over our destiny. And number 7, they have a good track record. They've already taken care of us in the past. These are the 7 pillars of trust. Now, there are many people who we trust that don't have all 7. They have 2, 3, 4, 5. Parents have a majority of these, right? Judaism says God has all 7. And one of the big themes of the daily Jewish prayers, when we speak the songs of praise and the daily davening, is to impress upon us all of these 7 pillars of our relationship with God. We could trust in God. So let's conclude the entire stream of ideas. God is fully in control of our lives. God is planning our lives. God has a purpose of our lives. For that reason, we should be fully engaged, and we should try to tap into the potential and the purpose of every single moment. And not allow our minds to be all over the place, but the opposite, to fully appreciate and fully immerse ourselves in every single moment. And to have the trust that whatever is happening and whatever will happen is being done by the God that we can trust. Just like the dollar bill says, in God we trust. And as I once heard a store said, they had a sign out by the front of the store, in God we trust, all others pay in cash. Okay, dear friends, I want to conclude today with 2 little videos. Number 1, unbelievable thing, unbelievable. And I want to encourage you to look this up because it's really crazy. There's a Jewish psychologist who has done a clinical test on the effects of trusting in God and how it affects our stress levels. He's done a test, like a properly clinically proven test. And we'll watch a video that describes it, of how he created a program and the effects that it had on his test subjects. That's number 1. I want to then wrap up the class, and then I want to conclude with a little video of a little collection of stories where you see the idea of this class, the joy of purpose, and how the Rebbe used this to different people who were facing annoyances, worry, stressful situations. And that's how we're going to conclude. So here we go.
Can money buy happiness? Not necessarily. It often invites the opposite response. But can money point the way to happiness? If you live in the U.S., it probably can. Take a peek at the dollar bill. 4 short words tell it all. Interestingly, the psychological effects of trusting God have been probed significantly. Back in 2010, Dr. David Rosmarin, a professor of psychology and widely acclaimed researcher of cognitive behavioral therapy, conducted a fascinating study into the real-life effects of trust in God.
I created a program to help people build higher levels of trust in God.
He specifically chose to test the kind of trust known to traditional Jewish belief as bitachon. Dr. Rosmarin identified spiritual strategies for coping with stress and anxiety. He then designed a program to clinically measure their influence on our natural stress coping mechanism. The 2-week program included materials, meditations, and exercises that nurtured a strong trust in God. He then deployed the program in a study of 120 random participants with reported elevated but subclinical levels of stress and anxiety. Dr. Rosmarin hoped to measure his program against a standard technique. So one group of participants was treated with progressive muscle relaxation, a typical method of stress relief that monitors and controls muscular tension. A second group of participants was provided with Dr. Rosmarin's daily Trust in God program, while a final group was offered no treatment at all. The participants were assessed before and after the program, and then again at a 6 to 8 week follow-up. The results of his study were astonishing. The muscle relaxation technique failed to produce clinically significant results when compared to the results of those who received no treatment at all. But the partakers of the Trust in God treatment scored clinically measurable improvements that were highly significant.
In statistical terms, it was a 2 standard deviation decrease in anxiety and worry over only a 2-week period, which is very, very significant.
And these gains lasted well after the program ended, demonstrating a long-lasting effect. The study indicated that the Trusting God method can be an effective practice for well-being for the global population. So instead of forking out top dollar, many of us could glance at the top of the dollar and remind ourselves that God is on top of things. When we recall where the buck truly stops, we can cash in on the benefits of cultivating confidence in our Creator, whose wealth of caring providence to each individual provides us with the capital for investing in our own state of happiness and calm.
It really provided clear evidence that working on one's faith can reduce levels of anxiety and depression and make things better. Experimental, clinical evidence.
I want to encourage you to look this up. There's a little text over here that discusses it, but it's really amazing. He found techniques and it works. So in any case, look that up. The faith, the Trust in God program to help with stress. And the idea is, dear friends, we're not just learning nice Jewish ideas, theoretical ideas. These have been clinically proven. This works. And this is the idea, the joy of living with purpose. Okay, as we conclude today, I want to show you another little video, a beautiful video that really brings to life everything that we've just learned about. And then we will wrap up following this final video. All right?
Soll sehen, dass nicht Chas v'Sholem, wie der Rambam bewohnt, Mikroniklis, eine zufällige Sache, was hat getroffen über Eimitznis, ein Neifall oder Eimitznis, eine gute Sache, eine nicht gute Sache, nur dass jeder Sache über Hashgocha Proti ist.
The purpose of Neshei Chabad is to bring the
Neshei Chabad convention in Detroit, Michigan. Let's say 20 ladies went, figure out how many children did we leave at home. Baruch Hashem, on Ainor.
It was in February 1979, and Monday morning, the women, took off for the airport because they were all planning to travel home.
In Brooklyn, in the shadow of Grand Army Plaza, some parts of Eastern Parkway are plowed out. But as you can see here, other parts of the parkway are not at all plowed. These cars stuck and good.
The Rebishter hat geholfen. There was a terrible snowstorm. So all the ladies are sitting at the airport in Detroit. No planes.
To give you an idea how bad it is and how long it may take for New York City to dig itself out of all of this snow, that tow truck is attached to this city's snowplow.
Miriam Popak's the head of Neshei Chabad out-of-town conventions at the time. Now her daughter, Mrs. Feldman, took over. She went to the telephone and she called New York.
They have to get home, and here's the snowstorm, and they all began panicking. And they asked my mother to call up 770 and ask the Rebbe for a bracha. They should be able to travel home.
Rabbi Klein answers the phone, and she says, we're stuck in Detroit. Rabbi Klein said, ein minut, and he goes to the Rebbe. Mrs. Popak keeps asking for quarters and dimes and nickels, ching, 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 ching. Rabbi Klein comes back, and he says, the Rebbe will wissen, was heißt stuck.
Wo dem Hashem mitzad der Geber Kinono, wie der Baal Shem Tov sagt, dort, wo Yid gefindt sich, hat der Rebischter hinzu geschickt und geschickt als Scholiach. Soll dort versprechen Jüdischkeit und machen lichtig die Finsterkeit von Golus durch Tero
1989, right before Rosh Hashanah, my father suffered a stroke. He ended up in the hospital. At Rosh Hashanah, when I get a call from Rabbi Leibel Groner, the Rebbe's secretary, the Rebbe wants to see me immediately. The Rebbe came out with a kuntras, with one of the booklets that he had given out the night before. And he said to me, das ist fahren Taten. And then the Rebbe smiled, and he said to me, Zog dem Taten, in Yiddish, tell your father that when he'll finish the mission for which he was sent there, he will be released.
Charles Hayid gefindt sich in a Mai mit Bilke Rotzui. Es ist nicht eine Sache, was Chas v'Sholem Mikre hu. Oder dass nicht eine Sache, was Chas v'Sholem gedei, wir soll bleiben bei dem Zahl mit dem Magmas Nefesh. Darf man betrachten, dass das Hayini von der Schlichus.
Went straight to NYU. I brought the Kuntras, and I told my father exactly what the Rebbe had said. I remember my mother started running around.
He was pretty helpless in bed, but I took a pushka and I ran around the whole hospital, and I took money, and I gave the patients money to put into the pushka. But I sent a message to Label that please find out it's mostly goyim there. What do I do? So a message got like 2 minutes later. He called me back. He said, goyim have to give tzedakah. So I just went all over the place and gave tzedakah.
When I was a bocher, I went away to Australia for 2 years. Shlichus, I got sick over there, need surgery. So I was away for a month. I was a month in the hospital. But the Chadikov told me that the Rebbe will have me durch alle Tag von was tut sich in Spital. Und ich, schaß in Spital, red mit Doktoren wegen Tfilm, oder unter Tfilm mit Doktoren. Und ich red wegen Matzes für Pesach.
Zum allen besten wird Schluche shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu bechol Moken wer gefindt sich auf durchführen die Schlichus von dem Ebersten geteres Abal Shemte, was Nesiderein hat übergegeben. Adose Madeshem mitzad de Geber Kinonu, als wo kommt und was für Amai mit dem Masse kommt, soll dorten Schmäh von dem Ebersten soll dort machen, dass in ein Leben als sein Schake.
Die ist active in the hospital house. What's very Yiddish now?
Well, we just started walking about now on Shabbos.
But you can't invite him to all the patients to him in
Well, I'll have
the
to.
you can't pronounce even the he has a speech here that he has not pronounced.
No, I'll tell him,
That he can use it in the...
He admitted today for surgery tomorrow on the late.
That's a new surgery. That will be a short area. You have his rocket push with you. Then you'll take it in the hospital.
She has it.
Huh?
She is taking a tzedakah pushka with her in the hospital.
The hospital, yeah, and put its rocket there also. And I've got rheumatism in the hospital also. Yeah, then you'll have a good news.
My child Mendel is not well. He was in the hospital. So I called up Rebbe Chadikov just to tell him that, I'm going, my little boy's in the hospital, and I'm here in the hospital with him. It goes quiet on the line for a little bit. And then Rebbe Chadikov comes back on the line and he says like this. Sicher hat der Eberster nicht gemacht, dass der Kind soll sein in Hospital, und du sollst haben Magmas Nefesh. Certainly, the Eberster didn't make such a thing happen so that you should be anguished because of it. Sicher ist dort ein Fran Ashlichus dir zu tun. You certainly have a shlichus that you have to do there. Geh gefinnes and do us. Go find it and do it.
Jeder darf wissen sein, als mit tun wer gefindt sich und was war einmal mit der Masse wer gefindt sich, hat in Druf a Schlichus und das ist a Schlichus, was da ungetan geworden in alle Kiem, in alle Wusch, die Chere haben mal im Umastil, so aber eine sichere Sache, als wird uns durchführen, warum schluch ich Lodem gemäßigt, sie hatte dem ganzen Kirch, was das muss und muss gitten, auf durchführen die Schlichus.
Right before Yom Kippur, my father did come out from the hospital, and he went by the Rebbe for Lekach.
Mit Mischadien, als ein Waffen verworden, und als ein bisschen so zu gesagt. Ich sage, es kann keine Anholen, wir haben es nicht versehen. Wir will einen die Kinder, wir haben nicht einen guten Leben. Dann haben die Waffen verworden.
So wherever you find yourself, whether it's, they said, in a beautiful place or a hospital, God leads the footsteps of a person, and you're going to have to figure out, understand what is the mission of why God put me in this place. There's a reason I'm here, and I have to redeem it and find the reason and the purpose, the mission of my being there.